It's time for the spoiler-free review of Season 1 of Amazon's The Boys. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW Reviews.
Super Dario World!
It's a me,
Dario!
Woohoo! Let's go!
Okay, so let's get into it. Amazon superhero web series The Boys, which is based off of a comic book from the same name, aired a couple weeks ago. I just finished it over the weekend. I spent some time writing the article. You can check out the article at reviewNation.net under the TV tabs. That's where I put the written review. I'm going to also load the video here. Also, if you want to listen to my regular podcast, you can find it at the iHeartRadio app. Just type in The Show Presents Super Dario World, or you can find it on YouTube, iTunes, and SoundCloud as Super Dario World Podcast. Need to get that out of the way. So, the superhero TV show aired a few weeks ago, and like I said, based on a comic book, which I did not read. I need to clarify, I had never read it. I heard about it, but I never read it, and I got a comic book of it while we were at Comic-Con at a special Amazon event. We got a comic book there, and I didn't read that one either because I wanted to come in clean to the series. I didn't want to be influenced in any way. So I was very excited about this one, and I've given praise to Amazon, a lot of praise to Amazon lately, because I think that Amazon is going to ultimately win the streaming wars. I think they're going to be the next top dog in the streaming world, particularly because it comes with Amazon Prime. So you're paying for free shipping of stuff, free convenient shipping, and you're also getting a kick-ass TV shows and movies. It's just way too convenient. Netflix, on the other hand, it just keeps bleeding out material. I mean, they're just losing material left and right. So wanted to get that out of the way. And also they've done pretty high quality stuff. So check out, like, honestly, I was really excited when I saw the very first trailer for The Boys. It looked really good. It looked like it might be the next big superhero TV show, because right now everybody and their mother has made a TV show, a superhero TV show. Netflix has the Umbrella Academy. I mean, DC has its own streaming service. Disney has it's about to start releasing some MCU stuff there. But I thought that this one had a lot of potential. And now I need to compare it to where did I expect it? So the big dog to me in the superhero TV show world was Daredevil. Netflix's Daredevil. I love that TV show. To me, it was great. It was dark. It had an amazing villain, one of the best villains I've ever seen on TV. And so to me, that's what you need in the show, right? You need a great villain. In order to have a great hero, he needs to take on an even greater villain, because one makes the other one better. And so how does The Boys stack up against, let's say, Daredevil? So because Daredevil's gone right now. I mean, supposedly it might come back, but right now it's gone. So the spot for the top superhero TV show is open right now. Somebody's got to take the crown. But before I get into that and whether or not The Boys takes the crown, let me tell you a little bit about the show. So basically, the show is about a group of vigilantes called The Boys, who kind of put superheroes in their place, right? So they take down a group of misbehaving superheroes known as the Seven, which is basically a ripoff of the Justice League. And I mean, like, almost straight up ripoff. Like, they don't give a fuck. They're kind of powered down. It's a powered down version of the Justice League, but it's basically the Justice League. And so it's a group of vigilantes that takes down or that it goes up against the Seven, which is aka the Justice League. But nobody's gonna say that anyway. And the Seven are also controlled by a large corporation known as Vought International. Can't forget that. So they are employees. They're private employees of a large corporation. So a lot of things happen throughout the series. I will not go into the details, the minutia of it. I'll just go into a vague overview. Well, I'll do an overview. I won't be vague. Well, I'll be a little bit vague. Anyway, so the interesting thing here is how they present the superheroes, right? Because usually we have an image of what a superhero is. Honorable, noble, larger than life. Particularly the members of the Justice League. That's how we see them, right? The iconic super beings that would never harm us. Here in The Boys, since they are private employees, they're treated more like celebrities. And celebrities who are total a-holes. Like, fame went to their heads. Because they're not just superheroes, they're also movie stars, reality TV show stars. They're everywhere. And so they're like a franchise, but that's real. Imagine if like the MCU were real. So it's a very interesting way of looking at the world. And a lot of people have asked me like, dude, do you think that the premise is kind of stupid? Like, and my answer is, dude, if you had superpowers, would you be nice or would you be a douche? I'm like, yeah, I'd probably be a douche. So the superheroes have this thing where they consider themselves to be better than other people. And I mean, I guess they are because they're super beings. So sometimes that makes them forget that the little guys are not just collateral damage, should not just be collateral damage, and that's where the boys come in. So the TV show follows, it's very well balanced. It's very, you get to see both sides pretty well, and you follow both sides via a new character that's introduced to each group. For the boys, you get introduced to Huey Campbell, played by Jack Quaid, and he's kind of a loser, but he's a very non-confrontational loser, and unfortunately, and he just went through the trauma of losing his girlfriend due to a superhero incident, and so he is recruited by the boys' leader, Billy Butcher, who's played by Carl Urban. Carl Urban, you may remember him. He played Éomer in The Lord of the Rings. He also he was Judge Dredd in the latest Dredd movie. So he's a great actor. I love him. He does a fantastic job, Carl Urban, but I'll get into him in a minute. So we get to see the boys' side from Huey's perspective. He's the newcomer. He's kind of unsure who he wants to be and how deep he's really willing to go into this whole situation. Now, on the other hand, for the 7, we follow Annie January, and her superhero name is Starlight. And so she's a girl who she was born superpowered, and there were apparently pageants for superheroes as they're growing up, and her entire life, she's very innocent, she's very naive, and her entire life she's wanted to get hired and be a part of the 7. And so after one of the members of the 7 retires, she gets hired, and so we get to see the deep, dark world of the superheroes via her perspective. So she very quickly finds out that it's not what she expected it to be, and corporate life is definitely not what she expected it to be. She expected to be being a superhero meant something completely different than it did. But it's for you to watch. I'm gonna get into that. So those are the two kind of new characters, the intro, the ones that we follow and who we learn new stuff with. But it's the show, not the stars of the show are the leaders of each group. Now, the main character for the boys, like I said before, is Carl Urban, Billy Butcher, and his story is very mysterious, and he has a lot of anger issues, and he's very flawed, and you don't understand why. So getting throughout the season, you get to understand his motives a little bit more, and it's a great little mystery that you're unraveling, and you're like, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. On the other hand, the leader of the 7, known as Homelander, he is played by, what's his name? Anthony Starr. He's basically Superman. He's a Superman-like character. He is phenomenal on the show, and I mean phenomenal. He is probably the best part of it. He steals every scene that he's in. Well, he's a presence. He's like a monstrous presence on every scene, and it's like, well, if Superman were in any room, you would immediately notice Superman. He plays that very well. Also, everybody else plays that very well because everybody's very aware that Homelander's around. So it's very interesting how deep they go into psychology, and I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything, but you could tell that. Oh, okay, I almost did a spoiler, but no. Basically, my favorite part of the show was Homelander, or following Homelander around, because it's kind of his story. He's definitely fucked up. His story's kind of fucked up, but he definitely steals every scene that he's in, or he's beyond noticeable. Even standing next to other superheroes, you're like, okay, Homelander. Yep, Homelander's right there. And so Anthony Starr probably did the best job of the show. Now, on the other hand, Billy Butcher, the fact that Homelander is so good makes Billy Butcher much more interesting, because it's like, how the fuck is this guy going to take on Homelander? How is a regular human going to take on Superman? So it one elevates the other. It makes it very interesting. It's not a game of cat and mouse, but very close to it. Now, in there's also Elizabeth Shue also has a very interesting relationship. Her character is named Madeline Stillwell, and she's the vice president of Vought International, the company that superheroes work for. And her relationship with Homelander is among the most disturbing I've seen on screen. It's really weird. But it's, again, fascinating to see. It's one of those things where you're just like, yeah. So it makes you go like that. If you watch the video, you'll see my face, hopefully, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. But so the show has a very unrealistic premise, right? It's completely unrealistic because super beings do not exist. And if if they did exist, they would probably not be a part of a private corporation. But in spite of the show being completely unrealistic in its premise, it feels very real. It keeps its feet on the ground very well. And the reason why it does that, it's because they keep the characters, their emotions, and their reactions really well grounded. So it's suspension of disbelief is not that hard in that situation, because you actually go through a character that's dealing with PTSD. You actually go deep into it, and you realize, oh, this could actually break a person in that situation. The heroes, their emotions are not they're not superhero emotions. They're human emotions. Their hearts break. They get envious. They get jealous. They get mad. So they get sad. They get scared. So keeping the emotions very realistic is what makes this show feel very organic. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel ridiculous in any way, in spite of the unrealistic premise. And so it actually makes it believable that these characters could be that way. You can believe that a Superman-like being could be a total a-hole, because if you had those powers, you would be a total a-hole, or at least kind of one. You would at least think you're better than everybody else because you're fucking Superman. So keeping that, the way that they play that, it works very well throughout the show. Now, the show is very dark. It's very dark. It's very brutal, but it's not gratuitous. Now, there's nudity in it. There's gore in it. There's all that stuff. But the gore is there to show you the brutality of the world, the darkness of it, how messed up this is. The nudity is in there just to show you the perversion of the characters. So it's well, you know how Game of Thrones, all of a sudden somebody's just gonna say cock for no reason, and somebody's gonna be naked for no reason, and there's got to be something there for no reason. Here, but it's classy. It's classy. No, here it's very, I wouldn't say necessarily classy, but it's there when it has to be, and it's there for a reason. So they handled all that stuff very well, and some of them might be a little disturbing to watch, but you understand why you're watching it. They're trying to make the audience feel something. So that was very, very well handled. And now, the beauty of the show, to me, the beauty of it is how they managed to make you empathize with both sides. Like I said earlier before, the show's very 360. You get to see both sides of the story, and you get to see both sides as very flawed human beings. Not as super beings, as human beings. You understand why one person would go one way, why one would go the other, and why they would make the decisions that they do in that current situation. To me, that's the best thing a TV show could do, to actually make you understand the villain, to make you understand the hero, to not make the hero perfect, to make them flawed, to not make the villain perfect, to make them flawed. So it's a very good thing to do to get into each character's psyche, and showing you how they became the person on screen, because there's a few flashbacks that help you kind of understand things better. It was really well placed and really important, and they don't just give it to you in the beginning. Again, it's part of kind of like a mystery. You're solving it little by little, and so this is especially good when you're dealing with the darkest and the most sinister of the characters, because if you can understand them and you can empathize with them, then it puts you as an audience member in a kind of an awkward spot. You're like, oh man, this guy's evil, but I kind of like him. So I don't know. To me, it's great. To me, it's great when they do that with a supervillain. It makes the show way more interesting, way more interesting. And they did this extremely well, pretty much with every single character. Every single character is rounded up. They go deep. You understand their psyche, or enough for you to empathize with them. And like I said before, the PTSD in the show is very, very well handled. Very well handled. I've known a few people who have PTSD, and there's very different types of PTSD, but the way that they handled it here is believable, and it's a topic that can very quickly get out of hand. However, it was handled in a way that it still makes sense. It's understandable for everybody. That's the thing that they do. For anybody who's never had PTSD, if they show you this, you're like, okay, that's understandable. I can understand why it could affect somebody that way. Makes perfect sense. So that's not an easy thing to do, and they did pretty well. My only real complaint about the show is that sometimes it's you need to stretch out your suspension of disbelief a little bit, and that's something that happens when you're dealing with overpowered super beings. Now, for example. In the Flash TV show, I hate that the Flash, if somebody sucker punches him, I mean, he's the Flash. If you can't be able to sucker punch the Flash, but whatever. Somebody sucker punches him, leaves the room, and then the Flash can't find him. It drives me bonkers. Or Superman, who can hear people's heartbeats and recognize different heartbeats from space, how anybody could hide from him. It's things that drives me nuts. And here, you have a superhero who's a speedster, and somebody gets away from him, and you're like, son of a bitch, you're pushing my disbelief a little bit too far, but you could rationalize it. Or there's, again, a superhero with super hearing, and you're like, dude, you couldn't hear somebody else's heartbeat right there. Now, if you want to stretch your brain enough, you could explain it. Let's say, for example, the super hearing only works when he's trying to actually focus on it. In that situation, he wasn't really focused on super hearing, blah, blah. That's why it could have been something else, or he wasn't thinking about it because he was focused on other stuff. I could understand that. However, the problem is that you took me out of the show to think about that stuff. Does that make any sense? You took me out of it. So that's my only real knock. But that's the issue that I have with superpowered superheroes. Overpowered superheroes. That's my only knock. It's sometimes it takes you a minute and you have to do a few mental gymnastics. You can get there. It's just not as fun, I guess. Yeah, I guess that's the way of saying it. I should move this a little. Anyway, so where was I? Oh, yeah. So that is my only real big knock on the show. It's not horrible. It's not a horrible thing. It's a very minor complaint. But if I have to make a complaint, that would be it. Other than that, the performances and the story are fantastic. They're very enjoyable. They're super interesting. You are in the show for the whole ride. You care about every single character. You want to know what the hell's going on. Even the stories that are kind of separate, you're like, what the hell's going on? What's going to happen? It keeps you interested for the next season, for the next episode, for the next everything. It's not gratuitous. And so Amazon really, really did manage to bring to life a world of superheroes that we care for, with characters that we care for, and the world in general that feels organic, which is very important. So overall, great job, Amazon. I think that the score I gave this was 4.5 stars. It was a 90. I think it ended up being 4.5 stars. So far, I think it's the best superhero show out there. I mean, it's only season 1, and it could still go downhill. Season 2 is where a show really shows its true colors. Yeah, I said that. Anyway, so at least season 1, it unapologetically broke the mold of what a superhero show should be. It showed us what a superhero show can be, and again, going back to comparing it to Daredevil, the thing about Daredevil is that it's 3 seasons and they were consistently great. Season 1 was fantastic. Season 2 I had issues with the second half, and season 3 was the best one so far. So it stayed steady. This one, if I'm only judging the first season, I think it's up there. I think it can beat Daredevil season 1. I don't think it can beat season 3 yet, but it's hard when you already have set up characters. Here they're barely setting up the board. So as a setup, it was great. The setup for the future looks super interesting, and I can't wait for season 2. Honestly, I highly, highly recommend the show. Definitely worth your time. And if you have an Amazon, Prime membership, you already got it. So enjoy it.